Hi guys, today I will recreate a simple stylized explosion in PopcornFX. This effect was originally created by Gabriel Aguiar, so shout out to him. We are going to start by creating the sparks. To make the sparks we add an event multiplier which is used to define how many and how frequently particles are spawned. In this case we want a burst of particles. So we set the mode to total particle count and we expose the spawn count input by pressing the eye icon next to it. Then we want the spawn to be random, so we add a rand node and we set our values. Next we need to add a layer node. Layer nodes is where you add the behavior of your particles. Once you created the layer node you can double click on it and you have access to a new graph. Now first we can set the lifetime of each particle. We want it to be random, so we add another rand node and set our values. After that we add a billboard renderer node. This node is used to display your particles in the scene. We change the billboarding mode to axis aligned and set your texture. You can use any texture you like, but I decided to go for a circle with a radial gradient. Next we are going to add a physics rig. We connect the position of the physics node to the position of the billboard renderer. The physics node, as the name suggests, is responsible for handling velocity, gravity, drag, vector fields and more. After that, we connect the velocity to the axis. This will stretch the particles in the velocity direction. We add a multiply node in between to make the stretching small, as the default would be too much. We add another multiply node connected to the previous one, as we are going to use a curve over time node to decrease the amount of stretching over the particle lifetime. We set the second input to the value we desire and we connect the curve to the first input. As you may have noticed before, when we added the physics rig there were 3 nodes added. The physics node that I already explained, the local position to world and the local direction to world. The local position to world is one of the most important nodes, as it should be used in most of the effects. It transforms the position from local space to world space. So basically, if you want to spawn your effect in your scene in a position other than 0 in the X, 0 in the Y and 0 in the Z, you need to add this node, otherwise your effect will always spawn at the center of the world. And the same goes with the local direction to world node, but as the name says it's for direction only and this node is not always needed. Next we add a node called vrand. Vrand is a node that gives a float 3 randomly distributed in the surface of a sphere. This is useful in our case so all particles don't spawn at the center. Connected to the vrand, we add a multiply node. We set the vrand to the value we desire and then we connect the multiply node to the position input of the local position to world node. Then we add 2 other multiply nodes in front of the local direction to world node. We connect the vrand to the first multiply and we add a rand node. We will also use the vrand as a velocity input to make the particles go to random directions. We set the rand node values and we connect the multiply to the second one. After that we create a node called attribute. Attributes are variables that can be modified by the user at any time on the panel in the right called effect interface. We need to give it a name so it can show up in the panel. We are going to name it global scale. We will use this attribute multiple times so the user can control the size of the effect. Then we connect the attribute to the remaining empty inputs of the multiply nodes. Next we are going to set the size. We add a multiply node and a rand node. We connect the rand node to the multiply and we set the values. After that, we can drag the attribute from the effect interface panel to the graph and connect it to the multiply. And that's all for the size. Next we are going to set the color. We add a color node and create an attribute for the color. This is automatic if you drag from the color input and type attribute. On the effect interface panel we set the color as we want. I chose to go for an orange color with some intensity. Then on the color node we click on the eye icon next to RGB scale. In the RGB scale input we create an attribute called emissive amount. As the name says, it will control the amount of light emitted by the particles. And we are done with the sparks.